Good day, everyone. Welcome to Ready, Set, Go, a webinar series sponsored by HUD's Office of Special Needs Assistance Programs known as SNAPS. I'm Mark Allison, and I work at the Center for Social Innovation, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. On behalf of SNAPS, I would like to thank everybody for joining us. Today's webinar is Continuum of Care Program, Understanding the Role of the Collaborative Applicant. I'm pleased to tell you that today's presentation will be given by Ebony Wilson, who is a Special Needs Assistance Specialist at HUD. She is currently working in a number of areas, including the Veterans Homelessness Prevention Demonstration Program. As noted on your screen, we also have two virtual help desk representatives on the line with us to answer your content questions. Next slide, please. Before we begin, I need to make a few logistical announcements. Today's webinar is a brief one and will last approximately 30 minutes. As always, it is being recorded. The webinar recording and PowerPoint presentation will be posted next week on the HUD Homelessness Resource Exchange website at hudhre.info. We will send you a brief webinar evaluation at the email address through which you registered for today's webinar at the end of the presentation. And if you could please respond to the survey, it would be great. That helps us get your thoughts on today's presentation and future webinars. Next slide, please. As an attendee of this webinar, your microphone will be automatically muted. For better audio quality, we recommend using your phone rather than your computer speakers to listen to today's presentation. Due to the large number of attendees, you may see a slight delay in the advancement of some of the slides. That's normal. If you experience any other technical difficulties, you could try logging off and then logging back in again. If that doesn't work, or if you have any other kind of technical questions or concerns, please request some assistance by using the questions box in your GoToWebinar toolbar on the side. Next slide, please. And that same question box is also the place where you can submit your content-related questions. And while all of your questions are important to us, due to the volume, we may not be able to address all of them during the presentation itself. Next slide, please. If we don't get to your question during the presentation, you can, of course, as always, submit them to the virtual help desk on the HUD HRE website. When you do so, please remember to reference this presentation, CoC program, Understanding the Role of the Collaborative Applicant in your question, and that'll help the resource advisor direct your question appropriately. The presentation slides for this webinar are available at this time if you'd like to follow along. As attendees, you may access these slides by navigating to your chat box in the toolbar on the side and selecting the URL listed there in the welcome message. Next slide, please. And now, with that, I'd like to turn this over to Ebony to cover the objectives for today's webinar and to start the presentation. Ebony?
Thank you, Mark. As already mentioned, I'm Ebony Wilson, a Special Needs Assistance Specialist here at HUD headquarters. Upon completion of this webinar, you should be able to define a collaborative applicant, define the role of the collaborative applicant, and explain the collaborative applicant's relationship to the CoC. Next slide. There are 4 components to this short webinar. First, as mentioned in the objectives, we will define a collaborative applicant. It's very important for everybody to understand what makes a collaborative applicant. Then we will explore its relationship to the CoC, which will also give you a sense of the responsibilities of the collaborative applicant. Finally, we will provide information on some of the requirements of submitting a collaborative application in eSNAP. Next slide. A collaborative applicant is the entity designated to apply for and carry out projects on behalf of the Continuum. Also, the applicant applies for a grant to carry out planning activities on behalf of the CoC. A collaborative applicant can be an instrumentality of the state or local government, the local government, a nonprofit, the state, or a public housing authority. CoCs aren't necessarily eligible to be applicants. However, if the CoC is an eligible applicant, it can designate itself as a collaborative applicant For example, if the CoC is a 501c3, a nonprofit, it can be an eligible applicant, and therefore it can designate itself as a collaborative applicant. Next slide. The collaborative applicant has three main responsibilities: to submit the consolidated application, to apply for CoC planning funds, and to participate in the development of the governance charter. We will explore each of these responsibilities later in the broadcast. Next slide. And here is our first quiz. Which of the following can be a collaborative applicant? A, state government, B, PHA, C, instrumentality of local government, or D, all of the above? We'll give you a minute or so to answer. Okay, so it looks like 94% got all of the above, which is the correct answer. All three listed here can be a collaborative applicant. Remember, the collaborative applicant has to be designated by the CoC per Subpart C of the interim rule. Nonprofit organizations, states, local governments, and instrumentalities of state or local governments are eligible to apply for grants and can be designated a collaborative applicant. The collaborative applicant is the only entity that can apply for a grant from HUD on behalf of the continuum that it represents. The collaborative applicant's duties should be in the CoC's governance charter, which is required for all CoCs. Continuums of care are not required to be legal entities, but remember, HUD can only enter into contractual agreements with legal entities. Next slide. The collaborative applicant is responsible for submitting the CoC Consolidated Application and eSNAPs on behalf of the CoC. The CoC's Consolidated Application is made up of the three parts that are listed here. First, the CoC application, which was formerly known as Exhibit 1 in previous competitions. The collaborative applicant will provide information about the CoC performance, strategic planning, housing, services, and structure, HMIS, and the point-in-time count. This part of the application is scored and will determine the order in which the CoCs are funded. The second part is the project application, which was formerly known as Exhibit 2. This is completed by the project applicant for new and renewal project requests. It's also completed for requests for CoC planning funds. The project applicant will provide a description of the proposed new or renewal project, including the details as to who the project will serve, the type of housing that will be provided, and what budget activities are being requested. The project applicant will provide a description of the activities of the planning activities that will be carried out with grant funds. Lastly, the priority listings contain 4 separate forms that list the new, renewal, CoC planning, and UFA cost projects for which the CoC intends to submit applications. The priority listings rank the projects in order of priority and also list any projects rejected by the CoC. This part of the CoC Consolidated Application cannot be completed until all project applications have been submitted. The priority listings used to be part of the CoC application. Now is its own separate part. The CoC application and priority listings must be submitted together before completing a project application. A collaborative applicant will not be able to submit an application to HUD until all parts are completed. Next slide. Information about the collaborative applicant and the HMIS lead agency are on the applicant profile. The profile can be updated at any time. In the application profile, do not list information about the CoC board or chairs. This information should be from the collaborative applicant's organization. Next slide. Although the collaborative applicant has the approval of the CoC to submit the consolidated application, the CoC must approve the actual application before it's submitted by the collaborative applicant. It's important to note that no other organization can submit the consolidated application. Even if the organization is an eligible applicant, it has to be designated as a collaborative applicant by the CoC. HUD cannot review consolidated applications that are submitted by someone from an organization other than the collaborative applicant. Next slide.
All right. Thanks, Ebony. We have two additional poll questions for you. The first one is the consolidated application can be submitted without the CoC's approval. And we'll give you a few seconds here to register true or false. Okay, let's see how we are doing. All right, excellent. 97% of you are correct. False. The application has to be submitted with the CoC's approval. Okay, and the next and final poll question. The consolidated application must be submitted by the collaborative applicant. True or false? Okay, let's show the results. Excellent, 96% of you. True. The collaborative applicant is responsible for submitting the CoC consolidated application in eSNAPS on behalf of the CoC. Nice job.
Thank you, Mark. Now remember, for the second question, even though the CoC approved an entity to be a collaborative applicant, the CoC has to give final approval of the completed consolidated application before it can be submitted. And for the third question, HUD will not accept a consolidated application from an entity that has not been designated as a collaborative applicant for the CoC. For additional information, please go to the Continuum of Care program and the FY12 competition web pages, which are listed here. Also, you can submit questions to the HUD Virtual Help Desk. Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, Ebony. I think we've come to the end of our webinar already. I know it was a very targeted material here about this topic. If we could go to the next slide. Everybody should now be able to define the collaborative applicant. And we should also know how to define the role of the collaborative applicant, as well as explain the collaborative applicant's relationship to the CoC. So thanks to all of you for taking the time to attend today's presentation. Again, it was brief and targeted, and we appreciate that. As a reminder, if you submitted a question that we didn't get to answer during this short amount of time together, please be sure to submit it through the virtual help desk. Also, again, we'll do the online survey you'll get in just a little bit through your email address. And please just tell us how you think we did in meeting our objectives. I did want to announce, too, that we're excited to begin offering attendees of this webinar and future webinars of the Ready, Set, Go webinar series, the ability to mark this course as complete in the new learning management system so that you can add it to your learning transcript and track your learning over time. And you'll receive a link through your email to complete both of these later today. So thanks again. Please do join us for future webinars. We've got a couple coming up next week. On December 17th, we will be hosting a webinar on preparing for your 2013 housing inventory and point-in-time counts with a special attention on veteran program guidance. So that will be a good one. And then the following day on the 18th, we have a webinar presentation entitled Homeless Programs, Transition Policies and Changes. So please do attend those if you're able. Once again, on behalf of the SNAPS office, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks much.